Good evening and welcome everybody to the Recreation Advisory Board. December 15th, Thursday. And before, I'd like to call to order since we do have enough for a quorum today. And before we go to the approval of the agenda, does anybody have anything that they would wish to add or anything worth note?
Oh, yeah, could we add, this would be good, under old business,
Mm-hmm.
AMAC and AMAC and RAB collaborative meeting update.
All right. Okay. Without further ado, can we make a motion? Someone like to make a motion for the approval of the agenda?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
All right. All those in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. All right. Our next task is the approval of the minutes, and it looks like we have several months that need approval, but the first one would be May. However,
For the record, just for the record, I'm going to interrupt you,
Yeah.
Daniel.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to follow up with Lisa Eliason because in March, April, and August, the only current sitting board, you were present, but no other current sitting board member was there. August, Rebecca was there, but the other board members are no longer on the board. And March, it was you and Greg, so we don't have enough people to make a motion in a second, so we're going to get advice on those, but
Okay.
the others we can approve.
okay. Well, that sounds good. So for the May minutes, that would be one that is possible for approval, which, let me go back. Okay, it looks like all four of us were in attendance, so if anybody'd like to make a motion to approve the May 2022.
I can make a motion to approve the May 2022 minutes.
Okay,
I'll second that.
okay, all in favor? Aye?
Aye?
Okay, great. For June, just go back.
I can make a motion to
Okay.
approve June.
Okay,
I can second.
all in favor? Aye?
Aye?
Aye.
All right, let the record show June 2022 minutes were approved. September 2022.
I can make a motion to approve September 2022.
Okay. And
Either of you.
I will second that one. All in favor?
Aye?
Aye. All right, September 2022 is approved, and lastly would be November.
No, we have October.
Oh yeah, October, which I was not present. So.
I will make a motion to approve October.
I can second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
And November.
All right. Now, lastly, November 2022. Anybody like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion on
All
that.
right,
I can
Ash.
second.
You second. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Okay, November 2022 minutes are approved. And then we'll revisit the other months where we didn't have a quorum or not anybody here.
We need to get advice on if we don't have current sitting board members who were present at the meeting,
Yeah.
how can we officially get them into the record? So I'll put a note in here.
Okay. Okay. Looks like for new business, we don't really have any new business. It's all taken care of the past, so but we're doing pretty well so far. Moving on to old business, our discussion about the members. Last month we had talked about continuing the vetting process, which I feel like we were all in agreement. And did you have any?
So after the meeting, Catherine Ann sent us all the prior interested parties' information of individuals who expressed interest to be on the board so that we could review them, and everybody should have received them in the email. And I have them on my computer if we want to discuss them. I followed up with all of them this week to see who was still interested and get insight onto who lived in the city and who did not live in the city, because as part of being part of this board, 5 of our members must live in the city limits, and we're limited to 2 who live outside, which Ash is 1. The 3 of us all live in the city limits. So the following individuals said that they are still interested, and I have their information for us to discuss. So Anne LaRue, Megan Russell, and John Leidy. Additionally, since our last meeting, Annie Valiant and Stuart Goldsberry also expressed interest to be on the board. Of those, Anne is the only one that lives out of the city limits, just to keep that in mind.
How did the additional people express interest? Did they
So
email somebody?
Annie reached directly out to Steve Patterson, and he forwarded me her information, and I gave her I sent her an email about what the charge of the board was, what the responsibility was in terms of attending our monthly meetings and involvement. And I actually ran into Stuart somewhere, and I said, hey, I think you'd be a great member of the Rec Advisory Board. And he expressed genuine interest as well. So I have some information, if people want a little recap of the individuals who had previously expressed interest. So, and these are in no particular order. So, Megan Russell, in her interest statement, she's a longtime patron of our pool, bike path, parks, goes to Arts West. She has 2 small children who would be lost without the playgrounds and programs offered at the Athens Community Center. Her interest level that she indicated was for the parks, community events, fitness, individual sports, swimming, and community engagement. Her involvement, she is a graduate assistant, or was, I don't know the date on these, so if some of this is out of date, I do apologize. I think they're from the spring. She was the graduate assistant for OU's LGBT Center for 3 years. She taught safe zone trainings for multiple populations. And I am truncating this just for everybody's recollection. She served a term on the OU MLK Planning Committee, the D&I Advisory Committee, has a master's degree in creative writing and taught at multiple departments in OU. She doesn't feel that she has any conflicts of interest, and she is simply looking for a way to get more involved in the community, especially now that she does have children, and if it leads to something more, that would be great. She, as an instructor, she works to build inclusivity into her syllabi through language usage, in-class teachable moments, experiential learning opportunities. On a personal level, she works to provide her children with diverse and challenging experiences as possible, particularly as a Hispanic woman who enjoys the privilege of being light-skinned. It's important to challenge the status quo. And all of these are in your email. So that's a little snippet of Megan's background. John Leidy wants to help shape communities, parks, and recreation opportunities for the future. He graduated from OU with a degree in recreation management. He completed multiple parks department. He now leads a small nonprofit in Parkersburg, but he does live in the city of Athens. He believes having the ability to shape the future of our Parks Department would be satisfying. He lives in Athens and plans to live here for many years. Enjoys hiking, cycling, pickleball, and weightlifting. If anyone knows John. And for those watching, I apologize that I'm, in the interest of time, that I'm cutting these down. Rachel's no longer interested. Anne LaRue, she wants to serve because she feels that her ties to this community and work experience and recreational background would benefit decision-making for the board as it pertains to operations of our parks and recreational spaces. She's a lifetime Athenian with ties to Athens' first families, giving her personal insight into our history of our recreational opportunities in Athens. She's been part of APR activities since she was a baby in the Learn to Swim program. She worked and volunteered in the recreational field since her teens through 4-H camps, youth recreation, OU intramural sports, and she is a physical education instructor in Athens City School District. So she has a lot of involvement and connection to the schools and our youth. She has additionally helped transition Grover Center to the Pink Center, worked on the golf course, ball fields, fitness centers, ground crews for the OU physical plan, volleyball officiating, high school and college level. She's the coach and founder of Bulldog Archery Team and member, parent, and advisor in 4-H for decades. She has experience in coaching, officiating, advising, and a whole breadth of things. Her application is very long. I encourage you to read it all. And Anne's a pretty amazing woman. And why do I not see Megan? And Stuart is also a lifelong Athens resident. He grew up participating in camps that the community center used to host at all of our city parks. Has 3 children, baseball, softball, everything. Runs the gamut with sports. Would bring, again, some local perspective. Annie, I'm trying to find her email. She is the executive director of the Copperheads baseball. And I can't locate it immediately. She texted Steve directly about her interest in being part of the board. I know she is an instructor in the College of Business. Like I said, the executive director of Copperheads Baseball, so has experience helping run that organization, mentoring students through that, fundraising, all of those things. Does anyone want to discuss any of the potential members or interest in moving forward with a recommendation for any of those parties to the mayor so we can...
Was it still going to be like opened up again online, like how we applied originally?
So
or-
those all had the, those all were part of that process.
Yes. I just wasn't sure if we were going to do that again or not, or if we were just going to go based off these ones.
I think it's up to us. We can do whatever. Fill one, fill more, continue. And I think we discussed too, continually recruiting and having, information from that form as people are interested. And then when positions open up, to be able to immediately pull from that list and get people as part of the group so that we're not
Yeah, I think that's great.
thin.
Yeah.
I think minimizing the time where we have vacancies is key.
Oh, I agree.
So, yeah, I like that idea. I mean, everyone you mentioned sounds like they were well qualified to serve. In the past, with I guess in the past year, that worked out, I believe, couple people met and discussed it. We can discuss it now, or
I think from the meeting we had, the big group meeting, we can't meet outside of our public meeting to discuss that as a group. It has to be
Okay.
part of this meeting, correct?
You can't make any like decisions or
Yes.
actions or
Yeah.
anything
And
like
more
that.
think
than
that's-
2 people can't meet outside of our meeting.
yeah, I
because
think
it's
it
a
was.
public.
I think it. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No,
but
that's
I
fine.
think it was Brandon and Travis met. They had recommendations, and then we decided. If I'm recalling
I think
correctly.
so. Yeah, if you all wanted to have an ad hoc committee, I think that's one way that you could, if you didn't feel like today or tonight was the time to make a decision, then you could kind of have like an ad hoc committee
What is the?
of people to review and then make a recommendation to the board, and then the board discuss, and then, or if you all wanted to sit with it right now and talk about it, then that would be fine. You also don't have to make a decision either, or you don't have to make a recommendation tonight, or maybe you, there's all sorts of ways that you could move forward with it either way. And I did reach out to David McNally from he's the president of the Commission on Disabilities, and let them know that if they had any folks who would be interested, not obviously who are serving on the commission, but if they have anybody that they know that would be interested in serving on the Recreation Advisory Board, to pass them along, so then I could get them in connection with you all as well. He's acknowledged that he has received that email, but that was like this week. So we were talking about other things, and so then I was like, oh, it would be really great.
If we would like to discuss it now, which I'm fine with, do we take a hiatus from the TV, or is this
No,
just
it's all public.
open?
It's public.
It's open.
It's,
Okay.
it's the same as if we were taking, if it wasn't live streamed, all of this would be reflected in our minutes. Our discussion would be. So, in thinking about what Rebecca and I are the newest members, but thinking about the gaps in kind of our representation, is there anything that stands out to either of you or to you, Rebecca? I can pull their stuff up.
I mean, I think I know of Megan Russell a little bit, but I think that from what you were reading, she would be an excellent addition.
She has some interesting experiences that I think would balance out some of the things Catherine Ann has mentioned before. I just pulled hers up there. She also said, please describe anything you'd like that you think you could add to this community. And she states, she's a wife of a disabled veteran, mother to an autistic son, and she has a very personal investment in accessibility issues, and has lived here in Athens for 10 years. What were you going to say, Rebecca? I'm sorry, I didn't
Oh
mean
no,
to-
I like that idea too. I feel like I'm more concerned with like diversity, inclusion aspects, like things being equitable, and I feel like
And she has a
that
lot of that
aspect
kind of
could be
experience here as
represented.
well.
I also like the idea of, I don't remember her name, the one from the Copperheads. That could be like also a good connection with like OU students involved in recreation too. I don't know. That could be
Annie,
interesting.
that's
Yeah.
Annie.
I know Annie personally, so she would be an excellent fit. I would say Anne has come across in terms of the connection with Athens School District, which is something we've talked about in the past, and having some kind of go-between between the school district from a recreation standpoint. So I think she's a standout candidate in my eyes.
I'd agree with that too. I actually was having a conversation about this board and the school district and making a better connection, how that would be desirable. So
Well, when you think about the number of students who use the facilities, too. So that, and the other thing is, so when we talk about the individuals that we see being a good fit, that recommendation goes from us to the mayor, and he can take that advice or say, well, you know, if you ranked these individuals 1 through 4, like in case we have a backup, he may reach out to them in a different way or see a different mix. So just so that we set our own expectations.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm pulling my minutes back up so I can type. So, do we want to have a further discussion? How does the board feel that they want to move forward?
Well, we have right now 5 spots, and we have 2 vacancies, and it sounds like last meeting Greg was going to be done, and then now it sounds like maybe he won't.
Well, I think
So-
even because his term's up for renewal, then,
That'll be,
because in his email, we would have to say, forward that to the mayor for approval too.
yeah,
But for sure, 2.
yeah.
Plus requesting the mayor to review Greg's request to continue, correct?
Yeah, and I have forwarded that on to the mayor as well, so.
So Greg's. So we have 2, and we have 1, 2. We have 5 interested parties who all could be a good fit and fill different areas.
Well, I think in the sake of time, it makes sense to have 2 to recommend to the mayor, and then that way, maybe even by the next meeting, we'll have those 2 seats filled.
Does everyone agree that that's a good strategy to make a recommendation for our 2 top? Does anyone have a strong opinion about who you'd like to see on the top there?
I think I've highlighted Anne as a standout candidate based on kind of the connection with the school districts. So I'd like to put her,
Anne LaRue.
yeah,
Okay.
to put her as a recommendation forward.
Did you feel that Megan was standout for you?
I mean, I'm okay with both of those that we talked about. I don't think any other ones were really discussed, so.
Does anyone have any objection to Ash's recommendation that we ask Anne, or we recommend to the mayor that Anne be considered?
No.
So do you want to make an official motion for that, Ash?
Yeah, I motion Anne LaRue to be recommended for the board to the mayor.
I'll second that. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
I think equally all of the candidates have potential to be beneficial to the board. So I don't think that it should be taken as a, anything negative if someone is not chosen, because they all bring very different things. And I think too, from what Catherine Ann has stated in the past and what Rebecca mentioned about inclusivity and some of those things, Megan does stand out, having some skills and connections and experiences that might be beneficial to the group, and then continue pushing everyone else kind of up through the channel as positions open up.
Sounds like she's in a variety of things too, like 4-H and school things.
Oh, that's Anne
That's
LaRue,
you.
yeah. So
Mixing them
Megan,
up.
yeah, no, I know.
I think Megan brings the kind of thought process of accessibility, and I think that's important in recreation parks, at the at the centre, other areas where I think sometimes that might be neglected, and I think she might bring a really strong point across with that, which is awesome. So I think she would be a good candidate for sure.
And some of the other things too, serving, understanding the importance of engagement and serving on committees, and, of some of these larger event planning, some of the things that play into some of the things that we do in our parks that might give some insight and be beneficial for sure. She also said she's a member of the Athens chapter of Trail Sisters, an organization encouraging more women participating in trail running and hiking. She does feel she might be a little biased towards gender equity in outdoor pursuits, but I would see that as a conflict of interest. And she's looking at ways to get more involved. Do we want to move her name forward as a second candidate, or do people feel they want to discuss more of anything? No? Yes.
I think she sounds like a great candidate, but if I'm definitely open to discussing further if anybody's interested.
I think she brings a great perspective to the board that would be very, very welcoming on this board and give advice to this Athens Park and Recreation, So I think if we want to move forward with that, I'd be more than happy for that as well.
All right. Anybody want to make a motion to put Megan's name forward as a candidate for one of the vacancies to the mayor?
Anyone? No?
I'll go ahead and make a motion.
I'll second.
So we'll put those two names forward as recommendations for the mayor to review, plus Greg's request for his to be renewed. Keep this list, and we'll keep this list and these parties available in case, as positions open up, and continue talking through that. Is that correct?
I think you all have to approve the motion to
Oh,
Yeah,
I'm
we have
sorry.
All those in favor? Say
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right.
Thanks, Catherine Ann.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, where this goes from here, and if you could get this to the mayor right away, like tomorrow or Monday, he can do what he needs to do so that we can act upon this on the 2nd, which will be the next council meeting where there'll be business. And by doing that, the two candidates, so we'll have 2 weeks to make plans to be here for that meeting. Because if we don't make it the 2nd, the next meeting of council is until the 17th, which is less than 48 hours before
The next
the
one.
next meeting. If that all goes as planned, we can have all 7 of those seats filled for the first time since June of last year, which would be great. So yeah, so the sooner you can get that to the mayor, the better.
Could you clarify, is this one that you would have to suspend, council would have to suspend the rules? Okay, it doesn't have to go through 3 readings?
No, this isn't an ordinance, this is mayor's appointments.
Gotcha.
And it falls down to the end of the agenda. And yeah, it is open for
Gotcha.
discussion, and heaven forbid, but we find out between now and then one of these people is less than desirable, but generally by that time, the person, as you have done tonight, has been properly vetted, they've shown their interest and all of that. But no, this doesn't require an ordinance, so we don't have to go through the 3 readings.
Gotcha.
And that's one reason I'm glad, I didn't want to say anything, I'm glad you went through this, but had you not done this tonight, the earliest we were looking at getting this person on board would have been February. So this gives an opportunity to get these 2 individuals on board in January. So thank you for your diligence in working through that. I know it's tough to discuss personnel in private, much less in front of the whole world. But thank you.
For sure.
Yeah, I'll agree. I was in here internally saying, please do it. I'll remain neutral.
Yeah. Tough for me
No,
sometimes.
it's
Keep my
nice
mouth
to-
shut, but, that's why I
So let
lean
you all
back.
have the process. Yeah.
Got it. And you've got to pull the candidates down the road.
Right.
Yeah, so that's good. And I agree with what Andrea said. Continue to build that pool, so that when a vacancy comes up, you can fill it quickly. And then there's also anticipated vacancies when people's terms are coming to an end. So I think you're on the right path.
All right. Well, Andrea, thank you
No
for all
problem.
that. That was okay. New member discussion. We are set there. Next on the agenda is the nomination for permanent chair, vice chair, and secretary. And Greg nominated Andrea.
I know,
you?
I don't, I mean, that's embarrassing, but.
Well, I mean, with that said, I think that's a great nomination. I also think you've done outstanding with the acting secretary, so, which is something that we'd been lacking severely. So that was refreshing this past month. Does anybody have any thoughts? Anything to add?
I am humbled that he did that, and I would gladly accept it if the rest of the board felt that that was how they wanted to move forward. I would gladly do that. But if there's someone else who wishes to be the chair or is uncomfortable with that, I'm fine with that too, and I will not be embarrassed if you say anything here.
Daniel, I was wondering if that's all something you would be interested in since you've been on the board longer than any of us.
Yeah. Yeah, I would be interested. I feel like that would be. I've been on this board enough at first. You know, at first you kind of feel your way, and I feel like I have a grasp as to what we can do. There's always the question of what is our goal, or you know, and it's kind of amorphous. I feel like it can cover a lot of things. So, with that said, I mean, I'm sure Andrea, you would do an excellent job, too. So, but yeah, I would be interested in. I would be willing in that capacity or vice chair, either way. But also at the same time, I'm not, based on my seniority, does not make me feel like that's how it should be. So, you guys are new, but you're doing great. So. So we have three roles that need to be filled, though, and unfortunately, I don't think we can do one person multiple roles. So
I know why he's saying that.
yeah, I'm sure you could, but
Well, when Rick was the chair, he took minutes too, didn't he? I think.
I don't know.
I
I
believe
don't know
he did.
who Rick is.
The former mayor.
Okay, I was like, I wasn't a part of
Two mayors
that.
ago.
Yes.
Yeah.
I wasn't even here, so.
No, I was back in the yachts.
And we don't have to move forward tonight. It's up to the group.
Is this something that potentially, there's 4 here tonight and there's 3, obviously, positions? Is it something that we could continue with the acting for another 2 months potentially, if we have a full kind of roster? That might be a little bit more fulfilling for people to highlight who might want to be nominated or nominations, and be able to vote in a more pragmatic way rather than just kind of, well, you kind of chair by default because there's only so many here.
yeah.
Yeah, and that makes sense.
So I kind of maybe support the fact that if we're allowed to, could we keep the acting chair, secretary, and then think about if we get a full roster by kind of January, February, then this is something that we need to do with a full roster voting. That would be my advice, potentially.
And I think, I mean, we can have it, as long as someone is temporary in the position and there's nothing that says it has to be done today.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we said last month too, is it would be better to put those permanent positions in place when we had
Numbers.
more members.
Yeah, I agree with what you said, Ash. I mean, I feel like I've been here and other boards where it kind of gets kicked over by default based on who's in attendance at the meeting, and I'd be interested to hear if Greg has any interest in either of these roles, and the new members, they might as well.
So we're gonna save that discussion for next meeting. Okay.
Yeah, I'd highlight maybe for a definite position by the February meeting. So then January maybe a discussion with more members here, and then I'd say February we have to make a decision on, and then by the end of the February meeting we know who's going to be in position to lead us forward, I guess.
Sounds good.
Yeah, I'd say we shouldn't let it linger too any longer than that, though. But,
Agreed.
Agreed.
Okay, so if someone wants to make a motion to,
I don't think we need a
Do we need-
motion.
I don't think you need to.
'Cause
we're
you're
not
just- we're not-
you're
we're
not
just gonna-
making
We're
an
just not
action.
making a decision.
it's going to go on to the, okay. Great.
And then Catherine Ann added the AMAC, Rec Advisory Board collaboration. I actually met with Kelly Reesbeck. She's the president of AMAC, and we met after our last meeting and decided we need to make a decision on when this is going to happen. So she was supposed to email me today.
Well, they voted on it last night, and AMAC is going to meet here during our February meeting.
Yes, that
So-
was, I proposed to her that during February, they meet with us here, since our meetings are live streamed, so then everybody would have the ability to see what they're doing as well. And then we both tentatively wanted to make sure we did it twice, so then in August or September, 6 months later, we would then meet at their meeting
Okay.
and do that. So good, so it's approved. So
Yeah.
February will be a joint meeting.
Indeed.
It'll be a
Would
big
that-
meeting.
Would that affect the nomination process potentially?
If we're discussing it in January and just gonna vote on it, it would be a quick agenda item.
Yeah, I don't think it would
Take
necessarily
up
have
too
an
much
impact.
time.
Yeah, it would be a quick agenda item.
Good.
So yay, February joint meeting.
Just real quick going back, I was just looking at the terms here, and once this is all approved, the next expiration of a term isn't until February of 2024. So we've got a whole year of
Will
Not
it take
having-
us that long?
not having to go through this. Yeah.
Well, yeah, hopefully that would
Yeah.
be nice stability.
Nice.
Awesome.
All right. APR staff report,
Yeah.
Catherine Ann?
So I have my kind of normal what we would like from the advisory board, and I'm kind of wondering how best I can get support from the rec advisory board on determining and figuring out priorities. Also master planning. In my head, I would envision an ad hoc committee to assist with that, and then those people who are involved with the ad hoc committee would also pull in community members to help us with kind of the community outreach of what should be arts, parks, and recreation, specifically in our parks and programs. What should be our priorities based on what how the community's changed. That's just something that we shouldn't be we as in me and a couple people shouldn't be making that decision solely. And so we're operating on a very expired master plan, almost a decade. And, well, probably a decade from when data was collected, data were collected. So some of those things I'm still trying to carry forward of, yeah, well, okay, it was a problem then, so it's still currently a problem and we're working on it, but there's also new ways that we could think about prioritizing and reprioritizing, especially since we have a levy and folks, would like to see things done. So that's one of those things that I just keep on bringing back up, and perhaps once we have the full board, that'll be a good, and I can come up with some ways that I envision it. So
can we make it a goal to maybe establish an ad hoc committee by February?
Sure. I think that sounds good. And I'm wondering about the makeup of the ad hoc committee, just because with AMAC, there is they're establishing an ad hoc committee for the percent for the arts, and it has there's a certain number of board members that can be on. So that would be something that I could figure out what the specifics are as far as who all can be on the ad hoc committee, and then what the number is, and I can find that out for sure. So
You could, with the full complement of 7, you could have 3.
okay. And then I don't know if there's a certain number of community members outside of the board.
That they don't count. They don't count. For open meeting laws, you could have 100 if you wanted to. For the open meeting laws, you have to have one less than a quorum. So if there's 7 people here, you could have 3 people on the committee, and they could. So are you talking about how big the committee could be, or how big the committee could be without having to declare it a public meeting?
Yes, I think that is what you just said made sense as far as how many board members could, the maximum number of board members that could be on the ad hoc committee so that they could do work outside of this
So we had a budget committee prior, and Daniel and Greg and I were on it. Because there were only 3 of us, we could trade emails, we could do all that. Once we went to that 4th person, then it would have to be an open meeting and advertise. Now, if the 3 of us wanted to call people in from the community and part of that, we could still meet.
Okay.
But once we went to that, once we became a majority of the body, then it had to be an open meeting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thanks for that clarification.
Yeah, we had to ask to make sure that we were
Yeah.
dotting i's and crossing t's.
Yeah. Okay. So that would be good. And then whenever, hopefully, we would have new people, then perhaps, we might not have time in the February one, so.
But we can
still
outline that the ad hoc committee, what the
continue
role of it is
discussing
and what it's working on, so people can,
Yeah, I
Tell
can
you
kind
their
of bring
interest for
updates
March.
and, kind of what I would envision so that, you all could say, okay, yeah, that's this kind of structure or plan and that makes sense. Yes, I like that. That would be so helpful. And that would be a really good, that's definitely a year, if not more, project, so. To have a really good impact on our community. Okay, updates. The pool never stops, so we'll open up hiring in January. And I know.
When I first read that, I missed the word hiring, and I said, "You're going to open in January?"
Yeah.
Okay. Polar bear swim.
Exactly. It's a new fad of getting in freezing cold water. It's good for your health. And we also, we're having splash pad surface issues, and so we're going to go with the poured-in-place splash pad surface, and I'm waiting on one. Basically, to get the poured-in-place, we have to prep the concrete, and the company that could do the poured-in-place could also do the site prep for us, but we're getting quotes from other people to see if we can get that done less, because it would be sandblasting the paint off. It has to be stripped completely down to the concrete. I think it did have it had a different surface than it has now, and I think that there were some design things that were goals, but the paint that is on it is it's just filling up the filter baskets. And then there was the summer before I was here, there was sand mixed in with the paint. And anyways, if anybody used the splash pad this summer, then I'm sure they know exactly what I'm talking about, where there's slick spots, there's rough spots, there's flaking paint everywhere. It's just not a good, so we'll be getting that, and the people I've been talking to, they say that we should get it in before, well before the season opens in time, because we'll start filling the pools in mid to late April. And so I told them we needed it done by then, like with it ready to receive water, because that's when we'll start running everything to figure out what's breaking from winterization and what we gotta fix before Memorial Day weekend. So we'll be doing that big push for hiring and trainings starting in January. We have what we're calling a community room open at the community center. It's our little room that has just been, what do we do with the arts and crafts room? And we had all of these items around the community center, like a ping pong table and a foosball table and extra chairs and coffee table. And so we pulled it all together and put it in the arts and crafts room. And so that it's a space, because we have a lot of folks who hang out in the kind of lobby area. And so we created a hangout space for the community that's open when we're general operating hours. There were a few reservations that are still, like rentals that were still on the books through the spring, and so we'll reset for those, but we're not taking rentals for that space anymore. And then we'll have to reset it for summer camp. But the intention being, we have this space that's not being used. It's not a loss at all to take it offline as a rental. And we only had to spend like $52 to get it off the ground. So, and people have been playing ping pong there and have been sitting and reading in the comfy chairs. And so it's just, we would like to eventually move the pool table in. We have to move all the storage cabinets out. We coordinated that with Senior Club this month. So it's not, all said and done, but it's open. So if you need some place to hang out, it's a service to the community. And yeah. We have winter registration for dance and basketball and fitness. Youth futsal wrapped up. It was a success. We're going to launch open play Saturdays again starting in January, which is a drop-in, sort of like Wee Wigglers, but for also for some older kids as well to come in on Saturday mornings. We tried it out last winter during the colder months, whenever we're all searching for something to do with our kids to let them go run crazy indoors. And so we're going to do it again. And we have Wee Wigglers happening. We're planning for our spring break camp again. We tried that last spring, and that was a successful, so we're going to do it again. We have a winter fitness challenge going on. It's pretty exciting. We're almost a third of the way there. So we're collectively, whoever registers can contribute human-powered miles, and we're trying to get to 2023 by the end of 2,023 miles by the end of January. You get water bottles. We've reached out to organizations. They've contributed items for our drawings that we'll have kind of at different benchmarks along the way, which is a third. That's why I say we're almost there, because we're almost ready for the drawing. People can get water bottles with our logo on it just for registering. You don't have to be a member, and it was just something that we wanted to do to try to get people jazzed about moving in these winter months, whenever we tend to slow down and stop moving, but we get the winter blues, and nobody wants that. So if you haven't joined us. It's free, and you get free stuff just for joining. Let's see. Still meeting with the Athens, Ohio Soccer Organization monthly to kind of keep up with that soccer community. I'll have to pick up the Sandlot MOU soon, because that season will start before I know it. After school programming, rentals. We're having a delay with prepping our surface for the playground, the new to us playground at West State Park, just because of the mucky weather, because we have to bring some dirt in and fill in some spots. And so It's just hard whenever it's mud. So that hasn't been installed yet, but we're waiting for a good opportunity to have, to do some groundwork. And then the storm drainage work is supposed to start next week in West State Street Park, and kind of where we have the permit area on the driving range for soccer fields where we've been doing work. We had Krampus Parade. That went really well. That's just a collaboration that we have with Kelly, who owns the Chosen Pathways Spiritual Emporium, and Nicole was a part of that and helping support that, and people showed up in costume and they did some crafts, and that was awesome. We're starting our planning for our Music in the Park series and our Movies in the Park series. So now we're starting to get our eyes on summer and what all we can kind of prep for now. Last summer it was kind of, we wanted to do something, and so I said, okay, well, we'll try it out. And so this time now we have a little bit more time to plan, so we're excited about that. And I've also asked that we be a part of the Uptown Tree Lighting Ceremony and programming in the future, so the Arts, Parks, and Rec has a hand in that. More so, we don't have anything in it now, and it's it's a community event, and so.
Well, it started as a chamber event. That's
Oh,
probably,
nice,
So
and
it was
that's
a
why.
chamber event.
Gotcha.
And AUBA Uptown Business Association, not a city event.
Gotcha.
So did you reach out to Kristen?
Well, I talked to Andrew Chicky whenever, because I know that the city does a lot for it, and so since we had, no, I haven't, and so I just told Andrew, I was like, well, why don't you let us do something, just like we did with
because
Halloween.
it's an AUBA
AUBA,
event.
okay.
Yeah, so you want to reach
So
out
I
to
will.
Jessica Thomas.
Oh, okay, I will.
With AUBA and Kristen Miller at the chamber.
Perfect. Because that was something where we collaborated for Halloween, and it worked out really well with AUBA. So that's good. Making my notes. West State Street Park. It's a winter project to get the stall doors installed in the existing bathroom, so hopefully that happens this winter. We did get the benches installed in fields 1 and 2 dugout, and we have an additional shade cell installed to hopefully increase the length of time one experiences shade under the shade structures. Invasive control. Okay, so here we had some bids. So the community center roof bid was awarded. So we're working on getting our final contracts together, and those are meetings with the folks who were awarded the bid, and I should have written down who it was, and I did not for this meeting. But either way, that's really exciting. So we get a new roof, and it's actually moving forward, so that's great. And then the West State Street restroom facilities, we received 2 bids on that, but they came in above the 10% allowable. So we had, our estimate of cost was $250, and the 2 bids were $298,000 and $292,000. So we have gone back to revise the estimate of cost, and then in that process, Davey reached out and said, hey, aren't you building new restrooms? This could be a good opportunity to have adult changing tables, like adult size, instead of baby changing tables. And so BDT is changing the specs. They found changing tables that are inclusive of more than just babies, that would fit in those restrooms as designed. And so we'll add those in, and then we're going to put it out to bid again. I did talk to, and this is just kind of a general blanket of the bid process, so we are required by law to go out to bid if a project is over $50,000. We also have a joint purchasing cooperation that we can work through as well, that gives us the opportunity to do projects that are over $50,000 without bidding it out. But with, something like a restroom facility, it just makes sense to, instead of going through and trying to find contractors through the joint purchasing cooperative. I think I'm getting the words correct on that one. Anyways, and I was talking to city engineer in Marietta, because they're doing, because this leads into the next one, tennis and pickleball, they're doing a similar tennis and pickleball project like we are. And he said that he told me his age, and he said that he's been doing this for decades, and he has, and that he's never seen a bidding environment this bad, and that a lot of it has to do with the fluctuating material cost, and that it's really hard because once you put a bid out, I mean, it's a contractor giving you a quote, and you're saying, okay, well, this quote's good for 30 days. Well, within that 30 days, the asphalt's going to change drastically, your timber's going to change drastically, all of a sudden you're not going to be able to get the materials that you thought you were. So there are it's making the bidding environment really hard for us, us folks, to get good bids in, to get competitive bids in. And so I don't know if it was good to hear, but it was comforting to hear that, we're not the only city experiencing troubles with getting bids that we can accept and bids that are competitive, because it's also our duty to protect and taxpayer money, because that's what this is. So all that to say, we're going back, revising the estimate of cost, which means that we would have to, once we are able to receive bids again on this, we'll have to adjust the appropriations for the restrooms to get them. But we don't think we're too far off with those. Then that leads me into the tennis and pickleball. We're working on revising the specs with that, and working on the estimate of cost to bid. And so there's a couple things that that we kind of problem solve. So one of the drivers of the really high cost was asphalt, and asphalt is changing. The price of it changes rapidly. And so if a contractor is saying, well, they're building in, 20% more basically into their bids to make sure that they aren't operating at like a deficit. So what Andy Stone, our city's service safety director, suggested is that asphalt could be something that in the bid documents we say the city's going to buy. So then whoever's bidding would just have to say, okay, well, we will pick it up and we will do the labor. And so then that way, that's a cost that a contractor doesn't have to kind of guesstimate on what it's going to be in April or May or whenever, we would be purchasing the asphalt. And so we would be responsible then as a city for purchasing it. So we're hoping that will give us more people who would be willing to bid on the project. We're also asking that the bid be good for 90 days after it's accepted, so that we can go back to council and adjust our appropriations for that project. So the mayor is supportive of finding additional funds to put towards the tennis and pickleball project. And so we just have to revise the wording basically in the bid document to make it so that we can go back to council and ask for increased appropriations for that project to be completed. And then another one, and this is one where, we're floating around all these different ideas, how do we get this accomplished? And so we could put out the bid as you have a bid and also an alternate bid, which could make it more complicated for bidders, for contractors to bid on it. But also, so we basically have this A and B, which is tennis, and the tennis and pickleball project as we know it. Or A and C, with C being a different location of the pickleball courts, that being the rebuilding, repairing the current tennis courts to be pickleball courts. So we wouldn't have to purchase fencing. We would have to do extensive repairs. So it's definitely not. We don't anticipate it being necessarily lower cost, but you could get more pickleball courts, and there's already fencing there, there's already a structure there. We'd have to, Sale and Don met. Sale's our city engineering and public works director, extensive knowledge and experience on streets and bridges and asphalt and how it works. And he met with Don today, and they kind of went through, okay, so that Don could include that in the bid documents if that's something that we would like to explore and have people explore. What would that even look like? And that's, we don't have to put it out to bid with that alternate option either. But basically that would be an opportunity for you all to say, well, yeah, explore it, or no, don't waste your time. If you have any thoughts on that.
So the project that's out there is not utilizing any of the old tennis courts?
Correct. And so it would be the pickleball courts would be on the asphalt that's in between the community center and the skate park. And so repairing that asphalt and adding fencing around that area to get forward pickleball courts, and adding surface, obviously, after we repair it. And then either way, the tennis court build over in the solar array area is that location's not changing. If we move from there, they're gonna put more solar panels there, so.
And the desire to do this is usage of existing space, not to save money? Because all of the repair will likely cost the
Oh,
same
yeah,
amount. Is that-
I
So
mean,
just using the structure that's
Yeah,
there.
both locations need repairs. They need different repairs. More drainage needs to be added around the current tennis courts. There would be more cutting out of asphalt and filling in, and then patching in, and then the surface resurfacing. And with the current asphalt, there would also be sections that need to be cut and then filled in and patchwork, but not as extensively. Some of it could be crack sealed. From the last meeting I had with Saleh out there. But asphalt would be added to extend the surface about a foot, and then fencing. But there's already lights on that area too, and so you have an area that already has lights on it. There's no lights at the current tennis courts and pickleball courts because there's 2 painted on there.
I guess I'd like to know Greg's perspective on this after last time. He seems to be the guru of pickleball. Maybe this is something we can bring back when he's the next meeting, especially.
I know it's our desire to not wait on getting it out to bid, just because it does take. Because once you start advertising for the bid opening day, I think it's like a month, that it has to be open, and then you open the bids, and then it takes, if you're able to award, which we weren't able to award anything this last time, but if you're able to award, then it takes probably a month to get all of the meetings. You have all these pre-project before it happens meetings and paperwork and whatnot, and then make sure that everybody's on the same page of what project is, has to happen, commence. But we are at a space where, no asphalt is going to happen until the spring. So, but it'd be really amazing if we could have
ready
a
to go,
plan
yeah.
and ready to go when the asphalt plants open back up. And so, we could just continue on with project as is, and then add the alternate, or not. But either way, we're going to take the asphalt out, and we're going to cover that because we think that should help people feel more confident in bidding on this project.
So you would acceptance for either option using the existing, and then also if it's for the other.
Yeah, it would
Okay.
basically require bidders to bid on both projects.
What do you think the downfall would be of doing it that way?
I think that it could potentially cause people, it's a lot of work to bid on a project, even for big contractors who are used to doing it. And so I think that there could, they're still sending out people to go shoot measurements, and it is all in the same location, so it wouldn't be too much more for, their people on the ground to go do a little bit of surveying. But I think that it could definitely deter some folks from putting a bid on it. But it might not, honestly. I don't know. I think for curiosity's sake and whatnot, it seems like it would.
Because there more administrative or staff time on the city's part to have it go out that way? Like, is it, you know,
So BDT is taking care of the specs and changing it. I know once it goes beyond a certain scope of the project, which this would be a little bit beyond the scope of the project, as we originally agreed to, we may have to pay hourly for their services to kind of draft. I don't know. I mean, he hasn't mentioned that to me for this particular, but I know way back when we were going on it, and I was like, oh, well, what if we did this and what if we did that? And he was like, well, I just need to let you know that this is getting beyond the scope of our contract. But I mean, that's just part of design and project planning, but there's nothing necessarily prohibitive, if that makes sense, from my perspective.
and what's the advantage? Using a space that's already lit.
Yeah, I think it's because, you know, once we move away from the current tennis courts, what are we going to do with it? And if we wanted to use it as a solid surface for something, we would have to be repairing it anyways. And if we wanted to take it back to green space, we'll have to tear it down. I mean, you know, we're going to have to do something to it, no matter what.
And in the past, were individuals on this board opposed to that?
There's just, it's going to be costly.
Right.
I think that's what it boiled down to is from what I understand. And I mean, Councilmember Swank has some perspective too, because you've been a part of the different quotes that were received for repairing and bringing back to life the current tennis courts. And I can't quite recall, but a quote that I think was from 2019 or 2020 that I've seen was like almost $300,000 to, you know, refurbish it all. And that at that time, I want to say just seemed, it is a lot of money to invest in a space where there are water issues, like standing water issues there and drainage issues there. And so I think if I could boil it down, I think that's kind of the, well, should we really invest that kind of money into a space where there's known issues with water? Correct me if I'm wrong.
Catherine Ann, you hit the nail on the head, the water issues. And I have pictures on my phone going all the way back to 2012, times when that area was this far underwater. For those of you that haven't been in town quite that long, one of those floods, water was literally lopping at the door at McDonald's, if you can picture that. So you can imagine how far although I've been told with proper drainage and all that, even in a flood zone, that proper drainage can mitigate the damage. But if you have a chance sometime in the next month, go down to the tennis courts and you can see, and the vast majority of us do that. Well, 20 years we really haven't maintained them, but also at least 3 floods since 2010 that put them completely underwater, taller than my granddaughters. I mean, that's how deep the water was.
Yeah, and I think that's, you know, part of is the maintenance part. Because once a crack starts, if you don't seal it, then it gets water in it, and especially where we live, the freeze thaw, that really has a big impact on cracks. And so, you know, there are things that one could do to mitigate drainage, and Solly does believe that drainage would help a swale, SWALE, could help in that area get water off the surface, or, you know, keep it from standing there. But it would be on us to also make sure that once you see the first crack, you know, be on top of it, which is definitely, a challenge. Yep.
So, if I'm correct, that location for the pickleball courts would be on the part of what was the airstrip. Is that right? And then the concrete was thick enough that the thought is that it could withstand flooding a little better as a base.
And it has, you know, you
Yeah.
can look at the differences of those surfaces, and it has withstood flooding better. But again, it's one of those where we haven't sealed the cracks in a timely manner, and so some of them have definitely not as big as the ones that are the on the current. And so maybe this is answering my question right here.
Yeah, maybe that is, yeah.
And so, but yeah, that's the thinking behind that surface being, yeah, it floods throughout that whole East State campus. But there's areas that you can look at that have withstood the test of time better.
Are you still also considering having part of that area available for skating or?
Yeah,
okay.
and I talked to Saleh about with the streets repairs contract. Once they start doing that, to come, and he doesn't think we would need a whole overlay because I want the whole that whole strip leveled, filled in and leveled. If we're gonna focus on that, then I want it because it is a little bit. Can be a deterrent for folks who want to be on rollerblades or skates or skateboards and then the basketball court. So yeah, there would still be room and we would still have the skate rink that we have right now. Those barriers are broken and I think done. So whenever we shrink it, we would probably get, if we wanted to have another enclosed area, we would just get new ones. Because what'll happen is they'll get knocked over with wind, and so they've cracked, and we've tried to anchor them in, and they're just, their life is done. So moving it at this point, there would still be a lot of room for basketball and any kind of the free play that happens in that current rink.
Well, it sounds like, great news to me to have that resurfaced as well in addition, as this is happening, because it seemed like that makes sense. And in the bidding process, I know can be tricky, but that's good to hear that.
Yeah, we aren't including the whole asphalt as part of the project, but we're going to do it as part of another project, the city.
Yep.
But
That
yeah.
sounds good.
And do some repairs on the actual community center drive and parking area as well. So separate. That's part of but I put it on their radar, and they wanna fix it because there's some issues there that have just gotten worse over time with the bus going through and freeze thaw and all that fun stuff.
Okay.
So are we thinking I don't know if
I think you answered your question, honestly. Like, if the whole reason that the project moved away from that area was because of draining issues that cause increased maintenance cost and monitoring over the years, then.
Okay. Alrighty.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And what's this Camp Rotation?
Oh yeah, I still have that on there. I actually need to follow up with her. But there's a graduate student who's working on her professional project in environmental education. I think it's environmental sciences, on Camp Rotan, and helping think about use of that space in a sustainable way and how we would do that. And then she has some of her own, research projects, but she also wants to work on signage and interpretation of that space as well. Kind of bringing it back up to what is currently there, because there's some signs where the species isn't there anymore, or the forest has changed over time.
Yeah.
So.
Where the sign base rotted out and it got propped up nearby, and it might not be
Right.
exactly where.
Right. So we're working through some of that and what camping policies would be in place and what that could look like. Trying to use the help and the different perspectives of folks. And I love having grad students want to come to me and say, hey, is there something that we could, that the grad student could get a learning experience from, but also that we could get get some benefit from as well.
On those platforms, there's one board that broke on one of them, and I didn't take the exact measurement, but I believe that there's actual wood planks on the porch at the lodge that might fit that.
There's loose planks at the lodge?
Yeah, there's
Oh.
there's like a stack of
Okay.
four or five boards that were they seemed to approach about the length of those platforms, but I didn't measure the length. But it's only one board. What happened was a tree, I think, fell on it and just like punched the one board out. It would be a pretty easy repair.
I think that's the one thing that we haven't necessarily decided is, do we want to keep the tent platforms or
Yeah.
remove them and have the ground,
Just the ground. I've heard both ways. I've actually camped on one of those, and it wasn't bad. But other people that camped on it, slept on it, did not like sleeping on the wood. So
Yeah.
I probably would tend to like the bare ground myself, but they're nice because it raises you up off the ground and gives people a sense of security, I think, maybe.
Yeah, it can be nice, and it also kind of designates this is a space you can use. I like it for that, aspect, but maintenance-wise, like user experience-wise, I like it. And then maintenance-wise,
Yeah.
I don't.
Or the maintenance positive could be they're focused in that area, not moving stuff everywhere.
Yeah. And then thinking of like the health department regulations is, okay, well, this is the space you can have for your one tent. And, it helps kind of clarify that this isn't a campground. This is, an area that you can camp. So that one's just kind of swirling and continuing, and don't want to forget about it.
Yeah.
I think that's all we have. We did have, I don't know if this, we did have custodial interviews, and we're ready to move forward with the job offer. So that's exciting because we've been operating down a custodian for several months, which has been hard on our other custodian. Yay.
That's good news.
Oh, and we have, our recreation program coordinator, our one that we had, he left. He got a full-time job, so that was exciting. But we have that opening, and so we're currently seeking applications for a recreation program coordinator, which is a part-time job. They'll be helping out a lot with sports, and then camp in the summer and pool stuff, and then sports again.
I'll forward that to my department students.
Yeah, so.
All right.
I think that's all I have.
For announcements, next meeting will be January 19th, 5:30. We will hopefully have a full roster for that meeting and a discussion about the permanent chair, vice chair, and secretary positions. Anybody else have any announcements they'd like to make? All right. Say we're set. If anybody'd like to make a motion to adjourn. All right. I'll second that. All in favor, say aye.
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 All right.
All right.
2020.
Thanks.